Turning 80 is an emotional milestone. Some people reach it with a satisfied smile, looking back on a life well lived. Others find themselves sighing with regret, haunted by roads not taken and words left unsaid. The difference often isn't luck or circumstance. It's the choices made decades earlier, choices you still have time to make differently. When I sit with people in their 80s and 90s, listening to their reflections on nearly a century of living, patterns emerge in their deepest regrets. Not casual disappointments, but the kind that wake them in the night. The relationships neglected, the authenticity compromised, the experiences postponed until health no longer permitted. These aren't just their stories. They're previews of what many of us will feel if we continue down familiar paths without pause for reconsideration. But what if you could know now what you'll wish you had done differently? What if the wisdom that typically comes too late could be yours while there's still time to use it? That's the gift these elders offer through their honesty, a chance to recognize in advance what will matter most when we look back. In this video, we'll explore the 10 most common regrets shared by people over 80 and, more importantly, how you can avoid them. Starting today, let's begin with perhaps the most universal regret of all. 1. Not spending enough time with loved ones. When I ask people in their 80s and 90s what keeps them awake at night, the answer is rarely pain, though many endure it constantly. Instead, it's the memories of missed moments. The ballet recitals watched through a camera lens while thinking about work deadlines. The Sunday dinners rushed through to prepare for Monday meetings. The phone calls cut short because something more important came up. I was always planning to spend more time with my family once I retired, Gerald, 86, told me, his weathered hands trembling slightly as he showed me photographs of grandchildren he barely knows. I thought I was doing the right thing, providing for everyone. But no one needed that extra money as much as they needed me to simply be present. This regret manifests differently for everyone. For some, it's the parent they were too busy to visit regularly. For others, it's the childhood moments of their own children, now grown with families of their own. Many describe a particular hollowness in realizing that people they once considered central to their lives have become mere acquaintances. Not through a dramatic falling out, but through the slow erosion of unintended relationships. The cruel irony is that while working-age adults feel constantly time-starved, many seniors find themselves with an abundance of hours and a scarcity of meaningful company. The retirement years they save for have arrived, but the people they hope to share them with have established lives that run on their own schedules, in their own directions. The solution sounds deceptively simple, yet requires courage to implement. Realign your priorities now, before circumstances force the choice upon you. Make the phone call today, not when things settle down. Schedule that visit this month, not in some imagined future when life becomes magically less hectic. Send the message, write the letter, give the hug. Small, consistent gestures often matter more than grand ones. And remember, it's rarely the spectacular moments that people cherish most in hindsight, but rather the ordinary ones where real connection occurred. 2. Fear of change, staying in comfort zones that have become prisons. Eleanor was 84 when she confided that she spent 30 years in a town she disliked, in a house that had become too large to maintain, surrounded by acquaintances rather than friends. All because the prospect of change felt more frightening than the slow suffocation of familiarity. I always told myself next year would be the year I'd move closer to my daughter in Arizona, she said. The weather would have been better for my arthritis, and I would have been part of my grandchildren's daily lives instead of a voice on the phone. But I was afraid of being the newcomer, afraid of starting over, afraid of making a mistake. Now it's too late. I'm too frail for such a transition. This paralysis takes many forms among seniors who look back with regret. Some stayed in careers that drained their spirit because changing paths seemed too risky. Others remained in stagnant relationships, neither happy nor quite unhappy enough to overcome the inertia of the status quo. Many continued living in regions with harsh winters that became increasingly dangerous as their mobility declined, rather than relocating to more manageable climates. What's particularly poignant is how often the imagined disasters that prevented change never materialized for those who did take the leap. Seniors who made significant midlife or even late life changes frequently report that the adjustment, while sometimes challenging, was far less traumatic than they'd feared. Many discovered reserves of adaptability they never knew they possessed. If this resonates with you, consider starting with smaller changes rather than overwhelming transformations. Join one new group, take one class, and visit one potential retirement location for an extended stay. Expand your comfort zone gradually, but intentionally. Remember that change doesn't require dramatic uprooting. Even modest shifts can significantly improve quality of life. Most importantly, recognize that while change always involves some risk, stagnation guarantees the slow narrowing of possibilities that many seniors describe as their most persistent regret. 3. Neglecting health while it could still be protected. Among life's cruelest ironies is how we often treat our bodies when young versus how desperately we wish for better health when old. I've sat with countless seniors who can pinpoint exactly when they ignored that persistent pain, skipped those recommended screenings, or dismissed exercise as something they could get to later. If I had understood how this back pain would limit my independence, confessed William, 87, who now struggles to dress himself, I would have done those stretches my doctor recommended 40 years ago. I thought I was too busy then. Now, managing this pain is my full-time job. The neglect takes various forms. For some, it was ignoring the warnings about smoking or excessive drinking until COPD or liver disease restricted their world to the distance between bed and bathroom. For others, it was a sedentary lifestyle that seemed comfortable in middle age but led to muscle atrophy and balance issues that now prevent them from playing with grandchildren on the floor or taking walks through the neighborhood. Particularly haunting are the preventable conditions. The type 2 diabetes that could have been managed with earlier intervention, the osteoporosis that might have been mitigated with weight-bearing exercise, the skin cancers that developed after decades of unprotected sun exposure. What makes this regret especially painful is its cascading effect. Health problems rarely exist in isolation. The knee pain leads to reduced mobility, which leads to weight gain, which exacerbates joint issues, which increases fall risk, which leads to fear going out, which contributes to social isolation and depression. One neglected aspect of health can trigger a domino effect that diminishes quality of life across every dimension. The good news, and there is good news, is that it's never too late to make improvements, even if perfect health is no longer achievable. Gentle movement appropriate to your current condition, proper nutrition, adequate hydration, regular medical checkups, and preventative care can still make meaningful differences at any age. Your future self is begging you. Make these investments now, while the returns can still be substantial. 4. Holding on to anger until it's too late to reconcile. I don't even remember why we argued, Thomas confessed, his 91-year-old voice cracking with emotion. Something about money, or maybe it was a vacation house. Whatever it was, it cost me 17 years with my son before he passed unexpectedly. 17 years I can never get back, over something so insignificant I can't even recall the details. This particular regret seems to cut deeper than most. The relationship's permanently severed not by death's inevitability, but by stubborn pride. The holidays spent apart, the milestones missed, the grandchildren who grew up not knowing a grandparent, all because neither party could find the courage to take the first step toward reconciliation. What's striking in these accounts is how trivial the original offenses often seem in retrospect. Family businesses that fractured over management disagreements. Siblings who stopped speaking after disputes about parental care or inheritance. In-laws are banned over perceived slights or boundary violations. At the time, these conflicts felt monumental, worth protecting at all costs. From the vantage point of advanced age, they look impossibly small compared to the relationship casualties they caused. Even more poignant are the reconciliations that came too late. The deathbed makeups that offered some closure, but couldn't restore the years of connection lost. We finally spoke 2 weeks before she died. One woman told me about her estranged sister. We both cried and forgave each other, but there was no time left to actually be sisters again. Grudges are deceptive companions. They promise justice but deliver isolation. They offer the illusion of righteousness while silently stealing opportunities for joy and connection. Forgiveness isn't about condoning hurtful behavior or subjecting yourself to further harm. It's about freedom. Your freedom from the emotional prison that resentment constructs around your heart. Whatever you're holding on to, consider whether it's worth carrying into your final decades, when the weight of regret often feels heavier than the original injury ever did. 5. Not living authentically. Helen was 88 when she showed me her first painting, completed just months earlier at a community center class. "I always wanted to learn," she said, her arthritic fingers tracing the canvas. "Always, since I was a girl. But my father said art wasn't practical. Then my husband thought it was a waste of money. And later I worried about what my friends would think of such amateur attempts. Now my hands shake too much to hold the brush properly. Why did I wait until the ability almost passed me by?" This regret emerges in countless variations. The retired accountant who secretly dreamed of teaching literature. The grandmother who always wanted to travel solo, but worried about what others would think of a woman alone. The grandfather who loved dancing, but felt it wasn't manly enough to pursue. Beneath these deferred dreams lies a common thread. Lives shaped more by others' expectations than by personal truth. The tragedy isn't just in the joy they missed. It's in the self they never fully expressed. Many seniors describe a particular melancholy in realizing they're nearing the end of life without having authentically lived it, as if they starred in a play with a script someone else wrote, only to discover as the curtain falls that they can't remember their own voice. What's remarkable is how often the feared judgments never materialize for those who declaim their authentic selves, even later in life. Communities prove more accepting, families more adaptable, and strangers less interested in others' choices than imagined. The real barrier wasn't external disapproval, but internal permission. If there's something calling to you, a creative pursuit, a style of self-expression, an opinion that feels true but remains unvoiced, please listen. The freedom of authenticity is perhaps life's most underrated pleasure. And contrary to what many fear, authentic living doesn't typically lead to rejection, but rather to attracting relationships based on who you truly are rather than the persona you constructed. 6. Not saying thank you, I'm sorry, or I love you when it mattered. Frank was 92 when he shared what he called his greatest shame, that in 52 years of marriage, he had never explicitly told his wife she was the center of his world. "I thought she just knew," he explained, voice wavering. "We were Depression-era kids. You didn't talk about feelings. You demonstrated them through providing and being reliable. But after she died, I found her diaries. She'd written so many times about wishing I would just say the words, just once. She died never hearing what I assumed she understood." This regret haunts seniors across all backgrounds and personalities. The father who never told his son he was proud. The daughter who didn't thank her mother for countless sacrifices. The siblings who let petty differences fester until apologies became impossible. The friends who never expressed what their connection truly meant until eulogies at funerals. We assume the people closest to us can somehow read our hearts, that our feelings must be obvious without explicit expression. But humans aren't mind readers. Words matter. They create reality, provide certainty, and become memories that survive long after we're gone. A sentiment felt but unspoken dies with us. A sentiment expressed becomes someone else's treasure. What makes this regret particularly poignant is how small the remedy seems compared to the consequence. 3 simple phrases, "Thank you," "I'm sorry," and "I love you," require mere seconds to say, but can provide years of comfort and clarity to both speaker and recipient. The barrier isn't time or ability, but vulnerability, the momentary discomfort of emotional exposure that many, especially from older generations, were taught to avoid. The solution is straightforward, yet requires courage. Make these expressions regular habits rather than rare events saved for perfect moments that rarely arrive on their own. Start with writing if speaking feels too exposing. Begin with the relationships where you feel safest. Practice until the words come more easily. Remember that a simple sentiment spoken aloud can become someone's final and perhaps most meaningful gift from you. 7. Not saving enough for peace of mind in old age. "I always thought I had more time to prepare," Margaret told me, her 83-year-old hands nervously folding and refolding a tissue. More time before retirement, more time before health issues, more time before inflation ate away at what I'd saved. Now I'm completely dependent on my daughter's family, living in their spare bedroom, counting every penny of my Social Security check. This wasn't how I imagined my final years would be. Financial regret manifests in various forms among seniors. Some lament not saving consistently when they could have. Others wish they'd sought better financial education rather than making decisions based on incomplete information. Many describe particular anguish of having saved what seemed reasonable, only to have longevity or medical needs exceed their projections. What makes this regret especially difficult is that, unlike emotional or relationship regrets, financial limitations in advanced age often cannot be remedied. The opportunity for significant income generation has passed. Investment timelines have shortened. Options narrow precisely when autonomy becomes most precious. The consequences extend beyond material comfort. Inadequate resources limit medical options, housing choices, and the ability to access help that might extend independence. They create dependency that, while sometimes unavoidable, fundamentally alters family dynamics in ways many seniors find deeply painful. Perhaps most poignantly, financial strain often prevents older adults from providing the types of gifts and experiences they'd hope to share with grandchildren or from supporting causes they value. The power of compound interest works both ways, in your favor when you start early, against you when you delay. Even modest, consistent savings established decades before retirement typically outperform more aggressive strategies started later. Financial preparation isn't about accumulating luxury. It's about securing dignity, choices, and the ability to age on your own terms. Whatever your current age, take one concrete step toward financial preparation this week. Whether that's increasing retirement contributions by just 1%, scheduling a meeting with a financial advisor who specializes in retirement planning, or simply creating a realistic budget that includes dedicated savings. Your future self is depending on these decisions more than you can possibly imagine today. 8. Not traveling or experiencing more while health permitted. I never saw the sunrise over the Grand Canyon, Howard told me, his eyes fixed on something distant. Never felt the mist of Niagara Falls or walked the streets of New Orleans. Jean and I always said we'd do those things after the kids were grown, after the mortgage was paid, after I retired. Now my knees won't carry me across uneven ground, and Jean is gone. All those some days ran out before we noticed. This regret isn't just about exotic destinations or bucket list adventures, though those feature prominently in seniors' reflections. It's about the curiosity and openness that make life rich. The experience is postponed until physical limitations permanently close those doors. For many, it's not even international travel they miss, but simpler experiences. Camping under stars, swimming in the ocean, hiking to a waterfall, or dancing at a concert. What makes this particularly poignant is how often these experiences were within reach, but repeatedly delayed. The vacation days are left in use year after year. The retirement fantasies that remained theoretical until mobility challenges made them impractical. The invitations declined because the timing wasn't convenient, only to find that perfect timing never materialized. Health changes often arrive without warning in later years. The steady legs that have carried you reliably for 7 decades suddenly become uncertain. The stamina that allows for day-long explorations diminishes. The confidence that made navigating unfamiliar places exciting rather than intimidating fades. And with these changes, countless experiences move from the category of possible future to permanent impossibility. You don't need a passport or an extravagant budget to avoid this regret. Even exploring a nearby state park, attending a local cultural festival, or simply taking a different route home can expand your world in meaningful ways. The key is prioritizing experiences now, while choice rather than circumstance determines your options. What small adventure could you undertake this month? What experience have you been indefinitely postponing that deserves space on your calendar? 9. Prioritizing work above all else. I thought promotions and recognition were everything, said Richard, a former banking executive now in his early 90s. I missed my daughter's piano recitals for client meetings, canceled anniversary trips for business emergencies, worked through most weekends and holidays because I thought that's what success demanded. Now no one remembers my title or accomplishments, not my former colleagues, not my family, not even me, most days. But I remember every milestone I missed, every disappointed look on my children's faces. This classic but persistent regret appears across generations and career fields. The common thread isn't specific to any industry, but rather an internal calculation that consistently places professional advancement above personal presence. What's particularly striking is how differently these choices appear from the vantage point of advanced age compared to how they seemed in the moment. Many seniors describe a profound shift in how they now evaluate what constitutes emergency or necessity during their working years. The urgent report that kept them from a child's game. The weekend preparation consumed family time. The vacation days left unused to demonstrate commitment. In retrospect, few of these professional urgencies had lasting significance, while the personal moments sacrificed them proved irreplaceable. This regret isn't about work itself. Meaningful work provides purpose, community, and contribution that many retirees miss deeply. Rather, it's about proportion and boundary failures that allowed work to consume far more life than it should have. It's about the misalignment between stated values, family first, and lived priorities, career advancement at any cost. Balance isn't a luxury for the privileged few. It's essential nourishment for your future self. This doesn't necessarily mean dramatic career changes, though some find that necessary. Often, it means smaller but significant boundaries. Leaving work at consistent time, protecting weekends and vacations, being fully present rather than mentally at the office during family time. What one boundary could you establish today to prevent this common regret tomorrow? 10. Not recording their life stories and wisdom. There's so much I wish I could tell them, Martha said softly at 94, about surviving the depression, about how we lived before technology changed everything, about family members no one remembers anymore. But the details keep slipping away from me now. I should have written it down when my memory was sharper. My great-grandchildren will never know where they really came from. This final common regret reflects something profoundly human. Our desire for continuity, for knowing our story will outlast our physical presence. As seniors reach advanced age, many experience the disconcerting realization that they become the sole repositories of certain memories, experiences, and wisdom. When they go, these treasures disappear permanently. The regret manifests in several ways. Some wish they'd documented family histories before details faded. Others lament not recording practical wisdom. Recipes prepared by feel rather than measurement. Skills learned through apprenticeship rather than formal education. Problem-solving approaches developed through decades of experience. Many simply wish they captured ordinary moments that seemed unremarkable at the time, but now represent vanished ways of life. What makes this particularly poignant is how preventable it is, and yet how consistently it occurs across generations. The barrier isn't usually capability, but rather the assumption that there will always be more time, that someday they'll organize those photos, record those stories, or write down those memories. For too many, cognitive changes arrive before that someday materializes. Your stories aren't just memories. They're legacies, bridges that connect past to future. They're how wisdom, identity, and values travel through time. Whether through journals, audio or video recordings, photo albums with detailed notes, organized collections of recipes or letters, or digital storytelling tools. Find ways to capture your journey, not just for yourself, but for those who will wonder who you were and what you learned along the way. The technology doesn't need to be sophisticated. A simple notebook consistently used often preserves more than complicated systems abandoned due to complexity. The key is starting now. While memories remain vivid and the ability to articulate them clearly remains strong. You are living right now in the time that 80-year-olds wish they could return to. This moment, with its choices, opportunities, and relationships is the precious season they would give anything to experience once more. The regrets they share aren't meant to burden you, but to illuminate the path toward a life that ends with satisfaction rather than longing. What strikes me most about these 10 regrets is how preventable they are. They don't require extraordinary talent, unusual circumstances, or massive resources to avoid. They simply ask for attention. Attention to what truly matters while we still have the power to choose. A shift in focus from accumulation to connection, from postponement to presence, from external validation to authentic expression. The beauty of wisdom is that it can be borrowed. You don't need to learn every lesson through personal experience when others have already navigated the terrain ahead and left signposts for your journey. These elders have given us a profound gift. The chance to recognize in advance what will matter most when we look back. Whether you're 50, 60, 70, or beyond, you still have time to write a different ending to your story. To make the call, take the trip, speak the words, protect your health, invest wisely, forgive completely, or live authentically. To align your remaining days with what your future self will value most. If this message has touched something in you, please share it with someone you care about. And consider leaving a comment below. What will you not regret when you look back on your life?